This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Oh, what a weekend in college football we had this week. It was great. I was in Gulf Shores, Alabama, which I've been through Gulf Shores.
Correct.
I've never been to it.
I haven't
like
either.
in the area. So we went to the Floribama bar, which I would say if Leonard Skinner was a bar,
This was it?
this was it. And it was a cool place, but it was like the world's biggest dive bar. Like it's huge. It's fun though. We had a good time. And they had two stages. They had one like inside main stage, and they were having some kind of singer-songwriter festival. And I find a lot of stupid humor in, like, I love those kind of musicians, Garrett, as you know, and a lot of them were from Nashville.
Right.
But, like, I love, because you, like, just randomly walk through at any time. Like, I remember walking through to go to the bathroom, and, like, I stopped and, like, they were playing like an old Waylon Jennings song, and the guy was crushing it.
Yeah. Just
Crushing it. And I was like, ooh, man, I'm going to hang out and listen to this for a second. So I'm listening, but then, like, the thing is you get, like, the singer-songwriter festivals, and the people who were there for just that are so intent on everything that they say and the story they tell, which it's fine, it's their thing. But if you're just picking it up randomly and then you see people like, he's like, let me tell you about my old guitar. You remember my old guitar? We used to call him Ted the Tank, because he went through some stuff, man. I dropped him on stage and, all these things.
Yeah.
And like every time he would say something that was kind of mundane, like, we're on the old bus, man. We're on the old bus. And be like, the bus.
I remember that one Tuesday.
The bus. I was like, bro, you've never been on the bus.
Yeah.
You don't know it. You saw a picture one time. The bus, golly. So it was weird. But I was there with a bunch of buddies of mine from high school. Some of us went to FSU together, but we all went to high school together. Three of us literally have gone to middle school together. Like we've been friends for 30 years.
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys I hadn't seen in like 15, almost 20 years, like a long, long time. A long time. So it was great. I will tell you, there is nothing funnier than the 44, 45-year-old men dudes trip where – you do push it a little bit to try to
make it past midnight.
To try to regain your 20s. And then there's like the pushback. Also, when you've got like a couple dudes like sharing a room in a beach house that are in their 40s, the fart chorus that happens is quite a random and funny thing. I'm happy to say that now after this weekend, I'm on the liver transplant list because I drank way too much, but had a great time. It was awesome. I recommend you guys go into Gulf Shores, Alabama. Also, I'll tell you this, 8 45-year-old guys. The beach house was huge. It was a huge place with plenty of space. So it wasn't like we were on top of each other. Yeah. But it is strange to see, like, how close you can get back to being on the high school football team again and the stuff you pull. I will not say the specific thing that happened on the show because the two people involved in it would just kill me. But there was a thing that happened that if you had taken it out of the Floribama bar and put it to outside the gym in 1997.
It's the same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing.
Same thing. Same thing. 28 years. Doesn't matter.
It's irrelevant.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you this. I hadn't gotten to do that in quite a long time.
I'm glad you guys could go.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten to do anything like that. So it was great. It was really, really great. And I was so fired up to be there and see everybody. But we watched a ton of games. You want to know, like, would you like to ride the sadness meter?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. So here's the sadness meter. 11 o'clock kick. I've got Billy, best friend from childhood, Gator fan.
Ooh.
Playing the Longhorns. So here's my thing about that game. Don't give a crap what happens.
You turned down an opportunity to go on your trip.
Yeah. Actually, I would not have gone to that game Andrew tried to spice it up for me too.
He did.
Because I'll do this. He's like, you name the restaurant, I'll take you after. Like, we'll just like, I want you to. It's like, you want a bottle of expensive whiskey? Like, you name it, I'll buy. Like, he was like trying to like. It was like the celebrity gift basket of things. Like, that's what he wanted. Like, because he wanted to see.
He was going to make your life hell.
Well, because he and I watched that Texas-Florida baseball game together because it was like we had to carry it. And it was in the middle of like the show or whatever. Like, I was there, so we were watching it on TV. And every time someone got a hit or struck out, I was like, I didn't know how to feel.
Right.
So he wanted to see that in the person on the like football side. So there's no way I was going to do that. But I knew that Florida was going to get rocked, especially when DJ Lagway, who was never going to play. Like, again, I love this, like, oh, this guy, you know how bad he was hurt. I'm going to let him go out there and warm up. But he's not really doing anything but standing in one spot and throwing. Like, okay, he would do that anyway on the side in practice.
Yeah.
You're just trying to not, like, let his arm get tired. But you are not going to push his hamstring to the brink.
I mean, I understand, like, wanting to play. You want to be that guy. It's coming back to Texas and kind of making your mark as beating them. I understand where he was coming from. But at the end of the day, that was more just kind of fluff and hoping Texas would buy in on it. But, yeah, there was no chance he was playing in that game.
Yeah. It was that one. But then my friend Kyle, who was hosting the thing, it was his sister's beach house there in Gulf Shores. And thank you to Matt and Kara, if they ever do see this clip, for letting us use it and trusting us not to wreck it, which we did not. But there was a time there, like early Saturday morning, I thought if Friday continues,
right,
we might have to like make an insurance claim. but Kyle, my friend, he went to FSU with me, but his whole life was a huge Miami fan, but it just didn't work out for him to go there. Like there's always things.
Right.
So he went to FSU, but he's been a Miami fan. Like I've known him since we were 11. He's never cheered for any other team but Miami. Now he did rock Florida State more, and our friend Jeff, who is a Notre Dame fan, same thing with him. He also went to Florida State, but that's a story for the end of the night because. So anyway, so then Miami loses to Georgia Tech, and Miami's defense is absolute trash, and we've known this for a while, and they are going to wind up costing Cam Ward something glorious. Like whether it's whether their defense affects. Here's the thing: I don't know if that defense is good enough to win the title. The offense is certainly good enough to win the title.
Yeah,
although they didn't have a great day the other day. But first of all, Brent Key owns Mario Cristobal. Yeah. Straight up owns him. And they won that game the other day, rolling out two quarterbacks who couldn't throw. I mean, they threw a touchdown pass, but they could not throw the ball and won the game. That is not a. I mean, if you look at the teams that are going to be above Miami in the college football playoffs, should they get there, or even SMU, who they would likely play right now in the ACC championship game, they can all run the ball.
Yeah.
So like if Miami winds up playing Boise State, guess what?
Yeah, good luck with that.
Problem. If Miami winds up playing Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, problem. If Miami winds up playing any of the 11,000 running backs that Oregon has, problem. I'm probably like playing Jalen Milroe in Alabama, problem, right? Like those kind of things. And like say A&M gets to the playoffs. Jaden Blue and Trey Wisner. I'm sorry, Quintravian Wisner. Like you look at all the teams that are up in there, like they're all pretty good at running the ball, So this is a problem for them when they get to the playoff. And even down the line here in the ACC like championship game, should they stay in it. And so what I'm concerned about is sometimes guys don't win the Heisman Trophy because not of anything they did. Like they never had a bad game.
No, absolutely. It's people around.
But the team had a bad, like the defense wasn't good. Yeah. So you're going to be like, well, we're going to give it to this guy because of this.
Well, that's why it's screwed up because it's an individual award, but it's based on what your team does around you.
Yeah.
And it's only for like two positions, essentially.
Yeah. So I still think Travis Hunter's your leader in the clubhouse. I think Cam Ward and Ashton Jeanty are 2 and 3. And I think if Travis Hunter didn't exist, then you just swap out Shedeur for him. But, I don't think Shedeur, he probably cares a little bit, but I don't think he cares that much. Travis is like their adopted, the other adopted Sanders there. But yeah, so Miami loses, so that's bad. Florida's already lost. Then we go and watch Florida State. Mm-hmm. I know they went to Notre Dame because I saw them on video, but nobody told them that, you have to try to match the effort.
Right.
It's going to look bad if you don't play as hard as the other guys, even if you lose. So that was brutal. And then two of the guys, Jeff and Ken played baseball at Notre Dame, are Notre Dame fans, so I had to sit there and watch that with them.
How'd that go?
We're too old to, be that miserable, but it was I was mad that they saw them joy. And the last time, I'll tell you this, here's the last story I'll tell about this, and then we'll get into the week. So the last time I saw Kenny, he was playing baseball at Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. His sister went to FSU.
Okay.
He grew up an FSU fan, but then got a baseball scholarship.
Got to take it.
Out of high school. We went to high school together to Notre Dame. And so he went to Notre Dame. And the last time I had seen him before this trip, even though we'd been in fantasy football leagues and maybe talked over the years, intermittently, I hadn't talked to him in forever. But the last time I saw him, Notre Dame came to Tallahassee in the Super Regionals and beat us. And I was very conflicted about how happy I was for my friend. I was I remember sitting, talking to him after the game, and my brain is going I'm happy for him.
Right.
I think I am, but I'm also pissed at him because this
is another opportunity. We're not winning the championship.
And he did get a couple hits in the series, so he was part of the problem. And then it makes me madder because I was talking to him and I was trying to get the timeline right. I'm hey, when were you there compared to Jeff Samardzija? He's Samardzija was the year right after me. I'm we didn't even lose to Samardzija? Oh my. We lost to you? No. I told him, look, I'm still a little conflicted about it. It may never be. I said, because
it's fair.
Because it's one of the things I've always wanted the most in my life. And one of the people who's denied it from me is a guy I consider a very close friend.
Yeah.
It's hard.
That is a brutal thing to have to deal with, Paul.
Yeah.
And then
granted, they didn't win either. And then, when they went to the College World Series, I was rooting for him. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's the one who, he had a hand in, taking it away. So. God. And he's like, yeah, I'm sure they'll get one eventually. And I was like,
it's been a while. You've been waiting for a while.
I don't know if I believe that. But that was my weekend. It was great. Had a blast. But Garrett, I think there's one game we have to talk about before all of them.
Okay.
Which one is that? BYU and Utah.
Oh, let's do it.
Because look, all the games I've talked about before, I guess I kind of dove into some of the other ones. There were not a lot of super great games. Bama and LSU was
don't even want to talk about that.
Blowout.
That was stupid.
Yeah. Miami and Georgia Tech was interesting and got close at the end, but Georgia Tech was in control the entire game. If the old game control stat, it was pretty much Georgia Tech, 80-20 in that one. But game control of this one was mostly Utah. And then we have 4th and 10. You get a sack barely out of the end zone. So you go from thinking you may even have a safety.
It looked like a safety.
And getting the ball, back to win, to having a defensive holding call, and to Mark Harlan, the AD, losing his mind. And he wasn't unhinged, but as ADs go, unhinged is showing up at the press conference.
Yeah.
That never happens. I know that somebody's going to say oh, I remember it. No, it never happens. The ADs are always at the press conference because they're waiting to talk to the coach or the players or whatever. But he went in the locker room. Everyone was mad. He caught some of that energy and he walked right to the microphone and said we were robbed. The game was stolen from us. Now, look, if you've seen any of the video after it, the replays, different camera angles on Twitter and everything, stuff in the field, it was a legit defensive hold.
It was.
So the question isn't, was it a hold or not? It was, what is the swallow the whistle line in a situation? Because sometimes across all sports, how many times in basketball have you seen well, I guess that could have been right. Well, Duke has a title in basketball against Butler because there was a swallow the whistle on Zubek against Gordon Hayward.
Did the Baylor women lost a championship like that? A swallow the whistle type thing.
Yeah, and like you can call it, but at this moment, like I think sometimes unless things are egregious, like if things are in the normal motion of gameplay, in the time it's going to be intense and that there might be some things that happen, but they swallow the whistle. But swallowing the whistle is completely subjective. It's completely, depends on the moment, depends on the person. So there's no like code of whistle swallowing, right? There's nothing out there that, when they sign up for the official referee fraternity, that they put their hand in a Bible and say, I swear to adhere by the standards of, I will not make a call under these scenarios that are listed in the Bible of refereeing.
Well, I mean, like watching that play, you could tell, like I had to watch it about 3 times to fully understand what was happening there. And I think if they wouldn't have gotten to Retzlaff and he would have just thrown it away or something, then maybe it would have looked differently. It still would have been a frustrating situation because you would have had to throw the flag on that. But I think the fact that they got to him and it would have been a safety in that situation had that flag not been thrown, that's what's really the difference here. At the end of the day, though, it was a rivalry game. You can't go and blame one play for the outcome. I'm sure you can go turn on the film right now. There are multiple scenarios where BYU, could have lost that game or Utah could have done something and stepped up on a third down. It's just unfortunate that the way it happened. At the same time, though, it's a rivalry game. That's what you want. It was exciting. I think that was the best thing for the Big 12 is to have something like that with BYU still coming out on top. Also, I think Harlan's probably upset with the fact that in that moment, you're thinking, okay, was this an egregious call that's given our rival the benefit of the doubt to keep their playoff hopes alive? I mean, it's naturally going to come in the back of your head. And then once reality sets in and you calm down, you redact what you said and you go from there. But it's just one of those things where you get caught up in the moments. It's sports. It was very Jerry Jones-esque. Just go out there and put yourself out there like that, or like a political stunt we see where let's just go yell into the void and hope everybody gets brainwashed by it. But like it was a bad look. And at the same time, the way I took it was all coming into this whole transition, Utah felt like the one team who didn't want to be in the Big 12. And I don't know if you can get this vibe or you can speak to this, but from my perspective, when we had Kyle Whittingham on and like interviewing him, it seems like the consensus as a whole for Utah is we're here for the Big 12 now, but we're going to get out eventually. That's just kind of how I've interpreted it.
And the thing is that when he says, I was happy to be in the Big 12, I'm not now.
But I'm not. You can't say that, dude.
First of all, let's rewind to the previous conference you were.
Exactly.
The Pac-12, you all hated the officials.
Yes.
Everybody
did.
Everybody hated those officials. Hated them. So let's not pretend like you left the Pac-12 and this gigantic ball of, great officiating just evaporated.
No, and I think this was also the breaking point for them, right? Because you've had that mindset. You came into this season's your fan base, rightfully so, wrongfully so, however you want to take it, was essentially telling everybody you're coming in to be the new Texas or Oklahoma. You're going to run this. You had a very embarrassing first campaign in the Big 12. You don't know about the stability of your coaching staff going forward. You've already made staff changes. We don't know where you're at as a whole, so you are flat out embarrassed, and your rival is in contention to make the playoff where you feel like that should be you. So, like, this is all one big, like, just conglomerate of things coming together right now for Utah, and that was just, like, the breaking point. And I think he just kind of come out and said what a lot of the fans wanted to say and feel. It's going to take the brunt of it for them at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think so, but like, okay, so all that happened. You just don't say like you feel that like, whether the
don't say that
whether the sentiment is legitimate or not of that you are always looking for the next thing,
right?
You don't verbalize it in that way, or you don't say something like that to make it look like, oh well, we're gonna leave. Like I'll just say that's FSU stuff.
Yeah.
That's FSU stuff. It's not, and guess what? It's not a good look.
No.
It's not a good look. And here's the thing. Sometimes even if you're right, things are better left unsaid.
Yeah.
It's called an argument with your wife. Sometimes when you're right,
just shut up.
Just, take solace in the fact that you know that you were right and then wait for her to figure it out and then take joy in that reaction. Whether it's an admittance or you watch them do it wrong again and you be like, okay, well,
That's you.
You didn't admit that you were wrong, but
we know.
I watched you do it again and now you know you're wrong.
Yeah.
All right. Fine. Little victories.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing that was bad was and the other thing was I'm betting in that time nobody came up to him he didn't have time or he wasn't in the headspace to go, okay, well, why did they call this penalty?
Right.
Did I show me video of this so I can see why they called it? And then maybe you calm down. And maybe he did, and maybe he's like, no, that's not a hold. It's a hold.
It was plain as day.
It was a hold. It was, and here's the other thing, and I'm sure Kyle Whittingham and Morgan Sally told them this, but the one thing you don't want on 4th and 10 is a penalty.
No.
Don't get a penalty. And so when you hold like that, and part of it was just he was about to get beat. The guy had kind of gotten inside on him. Not even yet. It was not even there, but he grabbed him, threw him off the route. It was textbook.
Yeah.
It was very textbook. And at the worst time, here's the other thing. The game was stolen. Okay, that was a defensive hold. They call it holding, not pass interference, right? Okay, so it wasn't a 15-yard penalty. It's a 10-yard penalty and an automatic first down. So they went from having the ball at the 11-yard line to the 21. Well, did you just not stop after that? You can bounce back.
That's
I
what I'm
understand
saying.
there's an emotional cavity because you went from this game is over. We're at worst the 1-yard line. At best, this might be a safety when they review it.
Right.
At worst the 1-yard line, we can, run at the clock or punch one, whatever they wanted to do. But the game's over. It's over. They can't do anything. Can't stop it. This is bad. But still, you got to go make a play.
Yeah.
So saying it was robbed from you had that happened, and then on the very next play, they had scored, I would say, okay, I understand how you feel like that.
Right, yeah.
But if there are multiple times to stop it, until then, no one was robbed.
Correct.
No one was robbed. So, yeah, that was – and then, again, the call was legitimate, so you have no leg to stand on. But this is also another reason, Garrett, that not having the officials available to a pool reporter – because now, sometimes they need to defend themselves.
Right.
Sometimes they need to – they have to defend their calls. Sometimes they need to answer for what they did and admit, yeah, we got that one wrong, but here's why we got it wrong.
Correct.
If you, look, you've got the tape. It's way easier. You should have an assistant there, and you have to submit the questions beforehand because it's not because it's one guy at the pool, so you give it to the pool reporter – but you could submit to the replay official and be like, hey, can we look at these 3 plays? And he could tell me after the game what happened. So, why is this a hold? Show me here. Or when they said, you clearly missed this call, then he can watch it and go, okay, well, now that I've seen it, I can see why, this is where it was wrong, but this is why we thought that.
Correct.
Then that to me is a good explanation. That should be good enough for everybody. Now, sometimes there's egregious things and people do a bad job. And it happens a lot of the time because there's not, especially in college, there's no accountability for the officials. But on the reverse side of it, there are times like this when an AD comes and calls you out or a coach calls you out. Ken Niutamolo, called out guys, got fined.
There's been a bunch of it. There's been a ton of referees.
Yeah. Well, part of it is because the coaches are held accountable publicly, but the referees aren't. And I get you don't want to be like, oh, this is the most fined referee. You don't want him to know, but people are starting to figure it out.
The crews.
How many basketball fans know exactly who John Higgins is?
Almost every one of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and John Higgins is actually good at his job, but because he's made some calls you don't like, now you track him.
Yeah. And then can we, while we're on this officiating, can we stop throwing shit on the field?
Please.
Like, dude, the LSU, and that's another one where that was a clear call against LSU, and yet your fans are being ignorant and throwing stuff on the field and delay. Like, just stop already. It's ridiculous, man. So ridiculous.
Yeah. No, just, stop it.
You look like idiots.
Yes. But if you had, accountability explanations, I think most people would be like, okay, well, all right, at least they are accountable.
Well, I also think that's why you need a sky judge, because you could immediately go up and have somebody to back it up.
Yeah, we have the ability right now for, especially if you've seen the NFL, they've rolled it out like, expedited replay is what they call it. They need to do it on almost everything that they can.
Right.
There's some things they need to not do it because it is, again, subjective, but like face masks. Like, you should be like, hey, there was a face mask on that, or there wasn't a face mask, because when you run the replay, you can go, oh,
clearly see it, yeah.
Clearly see a face mask. It doesn't need to be challenged, but if the sky judge goes, oh, hey, that was a face mask, drop a flag.
Yeah.
Like, expedited replay confirms a face mask, throw it up on the Jumbotron, everybody can see it.
And move on.
Yep. Like, you can eliminate a lot of these things, or they say, hey, an eligible man downfield, and you look and it wasn't an eligible man downfield.
Wave it off.
Yep. Like, don't pick it up. Just tell them, pick it up. It wasn't. And that way they know, like, no, he said he wasn't. They were seeing it up there. All right.
And then move on. It would make everything so much easier. It's about communication. Just communicate.
Watch the UFL and the way Dean Blandino does it, where he's sitting there and he just goes down to the official and they'll replay it and he'll be like, look, we've got an incomplete pass. The previous spot was the 17-yard line. He didn't get, his first foot landed out of bounds. He didn't control it all the way through, whatever it is. And then they go back. It takes 10 seconds longer.
Yep.
It speeds everything up. They should do it. They eventually will.
Yeah, they will.
But again, this is going to be one of those things, my soapbox of, there shouldn't be conference officials. There should be
one central unit, because conferences shouldn't. For example, not to bring up horns down, but the fact that horns down was a penalty in one league and not another is stupid. Like, it was any gesture, it would be stupid that it's a penalty or not a penalty that we're having this discussion. Yes.
Because then, clearly, like, Texas is kind of the test case for this, in that in the Big 12, it was a penalty. In the SEC, they said, shut up.
No,
it's not going to be like, we can make fun of each other every way we want to. Like, that's part of the reason we're the SEC, And so, and then the other thing was that bails out the Texas fans that really thought, like, please don't call a penalty on the horns down.
Yes.
Please don't call a penalty on the horns down. We don't want it. It's the majority of them.
Correct.
And it ends the discussion, because you have a national officiating office and one that answers to everyone, as opposed to this little pocket of where the influence is stronger. The SEC does it best. Do you think Greg Sankey, honestly, he doesn't put any more weight to Alabama than he does to LSU, to Georgia, to A&M, to Texas, anybody. Vanderbilt.
Which is why they're the strongest conference.
Exactly. Like, that's of all the things I complain about the SEC, Mike Slive said a culture of, we are one, and when you have a grievance, we're not going to be like what the Big 12 is, where if Texas has a problem, then that's a problem. If Texas Tech has a problem, maybe it is.
Yeah.
Maybe. It depends.
Right.
Is it as big as Texas's problem? Because Dan Beebe was in Texas's side pocket. Like, every chance they got, they exploited Dan Beebe, because he thought what was better for Texas was better for the Big 12.
Correct.
And that was only true to a point, right?
Yep.
I mean, yes, like in the Big 10, what's better for Ohio State's usually better for the Big 10 to a point. But then when you start, hurting the other teams, what's good for Alabama, what's good for Georgia, what's good for the big brands, is good for the SEC. Again, to a point. But if you cut the knees out of South Carolina and Vanderbilt to serve LSU, are you really doing right by anybody?
No, not at all.
Which is why, if you bring it under the collective part of it, officiating-wise, look, do you think in the NFL, the Bucks and the Chiefs have any kind of different beef or weight. Like when Roger Goodell there's a situation that they're like, oh, well, you did it because the Chiefs said so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
no.
I mean, and that's why it is the most successful sports, I guess, league there is, and that's why it's all cyclical like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So if they bring it under the whole thing, then they can fix a lot of this stuff. They can fix a lot of it, but every year we have a bunch of people criticizing officials. Some, like Mark Harlan, were wrong, and some are right.
Yes.
Some are dead on right. And then we're like, no, you're fine. And they're like, what about the officials? Like, well, we have a lot of games. They're going to get a bye week this week.
Yeah, no.
But we don't find out about it. And, like, part of me thinks that that's good because you don't want to give these people who have the hardest job on the whole thing.
People, like, going to their house.
Any kind of other thing. Or, like, no, like, oh, you've got Emery Winter today, referee and his crew. Oh, here we go. We're going to get a million phantom holding calls. Anytime a defensive lineman falls down on his own, it's got to be holding.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Emery. No. Yeah.
There you go.
Emery says he lets the boys play. No blood, no foul, right, Emery? Yeah, that's him.
That's my ref.
Listen,
Emery's my ref.
You know, block or charge? You know what Emery says? Neither.
Figure it out.
Yeah. Did the shot go in or didn't it? Then whatever happened on your side didn't work. Yeah. As long as everybody's got both eyes, we're cool.
We're good, man.
All right. Eye gouging is where I draw the line, but an attempted eye gouging is a gray area. Yes. So, yeah, look, I get what Mark Harlan was feeling. I get it.
Yeah, but that's one where you gotta just chill for a minute.
But again, there's only one or two people who could stop him.
Yeah.
And if both those people feel the exact same way, then who's going to stop him?
Nobody.
Like if the president's mad and the head coach is mad, and maybe his wife, he may not have even seen her yet. I don't know. But like outside of those three people, if they all agree with you,
that's all that matters.
No, you've got to say something. You have to say something. Yeah, no, I'm going to go do it. I don't care if I get fined. And then you're there and you say it, and then
you're like, damn.
One of the interns is like, I don't think that would have been a hold. Don't say anything, dude. Don't say a word. You let Brett Yormark tell him that.
Yeah.
Do not say a word. Yeah, no, I got it. So, and I mean, there are ways to say it that are better, and
I just think I don't have a problem with him coming out and arguing. I just don't say it was stolen from you, and don't say we wish we weren't in this conference. Like,
yeah, today we wish we weren't.
That's other
also,
way. There's other ways.
Also, if the Pac-12 was like the officials, before we even got into the both terrible commissioners in a row and all the bad TV deals behind the scenes, the things that people would complain about Pac-12
was the officiating nonstop.
And I think a lot of time it fell on a lot of deaf ears nationally because they're like,
nobody was watching the game.
Yeah,
it was too damn late.
It was 9:30 when it kicked off. I'm sorry I didn't see it, but I mean, I feel bad for you, or like it sounded like what's the like when somebody sends them a long text like, I'm sorry that happened, or congratulations.
Yeah.
Good luck though. So yeah, but when we come back, let's just do let's pop into some of the games and then we'll wrap it up. Cool. And I'm going to mention the FSU coaching changes. I'm gonna state my piece before I'm interfered with. Like, you'll give me some runway.
Yeah, run with it, man. Get it off your chest.
Yeah, I'm gonna have some runway here. Do you have my graphic available?
I can get it.
Hit my graphic available. We're gonna show this a couple times. I do need the validation that this was legit, good artistic work. This is the triple option.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina, Garrett Ross, here with you on the Triple Option on our very own channel, and also on 365 Sports. After this segment, you're going to see Peyton Soysher is going to tell you about this week. So the first one, Garrett, is just kind of about the movers and shakers.
Yeah, it's the movers and shakers. What took place this weekend? Like, what were the biggest games that caused the biggest movements? And then tomorrow he dives into what could happen with Ole Miss and Notre Dame, which is pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, because a lot of the things that could happen that he's projecting right now, what he's projecting right now is that Ole Miss, the computers are telling that Ole Miss is going to be in front of Notre Dame. But Notre Dame only has the one loss.
Right.
So he
and
thinks that Notre Dame
win.
Yeah, and so Notre Dame, he thinks that Notre Dame is probably going to be ahead of them in spite of what the computer is saying. So even though his algorithm is saying one thing, he's already giving you that, like, this is where the humans come into this. So, all that being said, the big games this week, obviously Georgia and Ole Miss, which we haven't talked about yet. Mm-hmm. Biggest win of Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss career.
Definite, without a doubt.
Without a doubt. First time he's really had a win like this. And to do it
with all those injuries?
With Jackson Dart, like, willing himself back out onto the field. And
that first drive, I thought it was over. The first drive of that game, when they came out and Jackson Dart gets banged up and they looked as pathetic as possible, I was like, oh, my God, they're in for an ass whooping.
Yeah.
And they were able to turn it around. It was really impressive. I didn't think they were going to have a chance without Trey Harris. I honestly didn't. Ulysses Bentley went off. Hats off to Ole Miss. That was impressive. I think we kind of saw this with Georgia. Like, they're vulnerable. That's one of the better things about this year to me is that there's not a team who isn't vulnerable. Like, everybody can get got. But no, I mean, that was with Beck kind of being up and down and being able to turn the ball over as much as he has. You knew somebody was going to get him. I was not expecting Ole Miss to get him like that, though.
Yeah, no, I was not either. I thought Georgia would win the game. I thought Georgia would win. As a matter of fact, most people in our pick'em thought Georgia would win the game. The winner, I believe, this week was 8-2.
I was horrible. I know that. I went like
you were 3
4 or 5 games.
You were 3-7.
It was pathetic.
You were 3-7. You could have been 0-0 like Craig was.
Oh no! It took me till Friday to put them in.
This is okay. Here's the deal. Craig forgot to do his picks this week, but because I went 6-4 and he was 4 games ahead of me, I only jumped him by 2 games.
Okay, but you're the man now
for this week.
That's all that matters.
For this week, I'm only still 2. It's what I mean. Why? Not fair.
He's good. He's good at making picks.
Good. Yeah, he's really good. Again, no emotion. No emotion in it. Divorced himself from it. About 8 of the picks I can have no emotion about, but there's always some. And here's the thing. I could pick games that I have no emotion about, but then sometimes those aren't the best games.
Right.
As a matter of fact, the week I went 10-0, I had no feeling about any of those games. I was just picking based on
just
that.
To pick.
When I've lost, I've either lost because it's a pick 'em game, right? Or I had an emotion that clouded my judgment.
That's fair. Like, I know I did have an emotion cloud my judgment on the damn. I picked LSU and told myself not to. I knew they had no chance.
Yeah.
I knew they had no chance. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Oh,
well. Yeah. I'm mad at myself for a couple of them too. I picked Iowa State to beat Kansas. And,
I did too.
You know. I should have, with Iowa State, like, put more weight to them being a little bit down after last week.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't think
2 in a row
Kansas could get them like that.
2 in a row at home.
Yeah.
2 in a row at home.
And I know Jack kind of
No,
disagreed with me
that was
earlier.
an Arrowhead. Never, that was at
Arrowhead.
Yeah. I keep having these memories of it, and you look up in the stands and everything's red and gold. And so I kept thinking, like, oh man, they're in in Ames, and then they'd like zoom out and like, oh no, that
No.
stadium could eat Ames.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're at Arrowhead. So yeah, I don't. I'm just mad at myself for being emotional. But Garrett, that was a big one. Miami and Georgia Tech. We talked about it a little bit. Miami and Georgia Tech really puts into question to me that if Miami can win in the playoff. I think they're going to earn their way there because Cam Ward is so good. But that defense has been playing fast and loose for a while. And Georgia Tech style and the way Brent Key just owns Mario Cristobal. Just go, go, go. And they did a great job defensively on Cam Ward, even though, I think he had 3 touchdown passes, but they had stretches where they just contained him. So Miami was never able to get out and run. That's the thing. They're not Seabiscuit that needs to know that they're in a race before they start playing well.
They're Colorado of the ACC.
Yeah, exactly.
They have a high-flying offense. They have an electric quarterback. They have playmakers all over the place. But Colorado's defense is better now than what Miami's is.
Yeah.
I think they could, if they needed to draw, they're going to have to draw the right matchup and hope that they can outscore somebody in the first round. And they might be able to get a win. I do not see Miami being able to make it past one round of the playoffs. I just don't see it.
Yeah. No, I mean, if they get that bad matchup, right? If they get that bad matchup, and right now Miami is at 11th in the AP poll and 12th in the coaches poll, but Oregon can run at you, Ohio State can run at you, Texas can run at you, Penn State can run at you. I still think they would beat Penn State.
I think that's the one. I think they could beat Penn State.
Indiana's 5 now.
Who's the best? I know this kind of gets sidetracked, but who is the best overall team you've seen so far this year?
Oregon.
Okay. Me and Jack were talking about this. I've only seen Oregon play once, and I think a lot of it's because of the times that they come on. But I would probably have to give the edge to them, but I think I'm putting Texas up there too. I think those are the best 2 teams overall I've seen all year. I think if Texas played Georgia again on a neutral field, they beat the hell out of them.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, sure.
That's just what I'm thinking.
Yeah. But, Alabama's going to run at you. Notre Dame's definitely going to run at you. BYU's going to run at you. Tennessee's got Samson. They're going to run at you.
Yeah, but here's what Tennessee. Does Tennessee start getting the Florida State thing with Nico being hurt?
Yeah,
that was my first thought with them. Like, especially with Georgia coming up, and I don't know his status right now. He could be
Heupel said he's in great shape.
Okay, well then that's that. But that was one thing when he went down. I was like, okay, do we need to start viewing Tennessee with that Florida State lens for as the season unfolds?
Yeah. Heck, what if Miami gets Army?
They don't want that. They don't want that.
That's those conflicting styles.
They don't want Army.
Yeah. Army now at 16, they're starting to get noticed.
I can't wait for that Notre Dame game in Army. That's the one. Because if they can get Notre Dame, then that can make things really interesting.
Yeah. Then,
'cause I'm still not sold on Notre Dame.
Yeah. I think this year is also showing you, though, like, all right, I know that you're going to do 4 Big Ten and 4 SEC teams, but, I mean, what?
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
I'll say it. I don't.
If Penn State and Army, if Penn State, Washington State, Army, and Boise State are all together in the 1 loss or less category, which Penn State and Boise State each have a loss, and to the number 1 and number 2 teams in the country, so I get that. But Army could maybe be undefeated, and Washington State could have a loss to just 1 loss to another playoff team, which would be one of the top 12 in the country, right?
Correct.
So why, outside of Penn State being Penn State,
Correct,
and hosting a playoff game at Happy Valley and how cool that would look, what have they done that's any better than anything that any of those other teams have done?
Nothing. They got beat by Ohio State.
They got beat by the one good team they've played.
Yeah, but I mean,
so if you get to a point where you say have Wazoo and Boise State, or Boise State and Army right there, and you have 4 Big Ten teams, of which Oregon, Ohio State, and Indiana are likely going to be 3 of them, and Penn State the 4th. And so Indiana's had some big wins.
But they still got Ohio State. We got to see. That could shake itself out.
But if Indiana loses to Ohio State and Penn State loses to Ohio State, what's to keep? Why would you just say that those teams are automatically better? Because when they've been presented with a team that can beat them, they've lost.
No,
but
I
they
agree
haven't
with
played
you.
a lot of teams that could beat them, as where Boise State certainly played some teams that could beat them. Army will have beaten Notre Dame. So, like, to me, the schedules are still kind of –
they're just going to say body of work because of the conference you're in.
But
that's all it is.
I don't think that the bottom rung of the Big Ten is so much further ahead of the top end of the AAC.
Well, it's not. That's what I don't like. That's what goes back to what I was saying the other day about, like, you're going to have to eventually get to a point with the conferences being so big where you have to have, like, some sort of inside playoff to figure out who's actually going to do it.
But also, Wazoo's beaten Texas Tech, Washington. The rest of their schedule.
And they got beat by Boise's their only loss?
Boise's their only loss.
I mean, I can't make an argument with that. I don't know. They're going to get left out because
they beat 2 Power 4 teams and lost to what's the likely Boise State lost to the number 1 team in the country, and
they would have to run the table to get in.
And
see, and that's another thing. Like, what happens, though?
Boise State's problem is that they don't play. That was the one power conference team they play. So they've got to run the table. But, I mean.
So we're in a situation right now where if Army runs the table, they would jump Boise because their win over Notre Dame would put them in and they would be undefeated? And Boise would be on the outside looking in with 1 loss to Oregon?
Maybe. That's where it gets confusing to me. I'm just saying, when you say that we're not going to take 2 Big 12 teams, we're not going to take 2 ACC teams, we're not going to take 2 G5 teams, when you've already kind of made that determination of if it's 4 and 4 from these other, and then the other 4 will come out of, Notre Dame, the Big 12, the ACC, and 1 G5. Well, if Notre Dame has 2 losses, and one of those to Army, and Army doesn't have one, like, you can't put Notre Dame in over Army, So, I think that it's going to take a long time for people to see the metrics change.
Yeah.
And while the SEC will maybe always have kind of a built-in advantage because of they've got the collection of the most consistently elite teams.
Yes.
They'll see that built-in advantage. I think the Big Ten may over time get exposed a little bit.
I think it's going to get exposed.
Because, yes, Oregon's the best team in it right now by a point too. Like, not that much ahead of Ohio State, who's always been the best team in it, really, forever. Penn State has been the same forever, and then you've got this kind of rotating door like you do in every other conference of a team that's good this year. They may not be good next year, but it's a rotating door. Like, the back ends of all the conferences are not really all that different.
No.
They're really not all that different. And that's where I have a problem with the conference by conference comparisons, because Mississippi State is not a better win or a better loss than
Iowa State,
or Kansas, right? Like, that's not. They're the same. They're the same. But because Mississippi State has that weight, or Kansas is not a worse loss than Purdue or Washington this year, right? Washington maybe better, but like, that's not a worse loss than that. But I don't know. I digress. Let me finish up. I don't have enough time to get into everything I wanted to say about the FSU coaching staff.
Oh, do you want your graphic?
Yeah, throw out my graphic here. They fired 3 assistants. Do we feel like this is appropriate and professional?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that emoji pretty much describes their season. A big flaming pile of crap. They are 1-9 after 13-0. This is the worst follow-up since Godfather 3. It's just not great. And I think Mike Norvell clearly has shown he can do some things, but I cannot begin to describe how they must be feeling because I don't know. But every decision they made from the day after they got snubbed until right now was the wrong one.
Yep.
and they needed to upgrade the coaching staff. They needed to find spots where they could have upgraded the coaching staff, and they didn't a year ago. And there are guys, the three guys who got let go, Dugans, Atkins, Fuller, the two coordinators, even though Mike Norvell's the play caller.
Correct.
And Alex Atkins is the offensive line coach, but offensive line and wide receiver were the worst two positions this year.
Well, offensive line was the worst. That's might be the worst offensive line in college football. It's bad, dude.
Yeah, it's awful. They can't do anything. Now, look, the quarterbacks are not developing, so I see other coaches getting let go, and we'll see like who's all there at the end of this thing. You can't just let them all go now. You got 2 games left. But letting these, especially the offensive and defensive coordinator, wide receivers, and offensive line where it's not been great, letting them go, then it sends the message of, hey, we're gonna go giant hunting. You know, I honestly think that they need to, not that they would get a guy like this, but when you let these people go from that are 13-0 and then 1-9, whoever the best offensive line coach that you think is available that can recruit and develop, you've got to make an offer to him. And then you have to go down the list of, it's not about, and here's the thing, it's not about connections and all that. It's about people who can work within your system and people who can shoot some life into it and people who can recruit. So even if you've never worked that person before, it's time to go outside the box and do it.
Right.
I'll just suggest one. Look, Ron Dugans let go of wide receivers coach. The first person I would call, even though they have no chance of getting him.
Brian Hartline?
Yes. You know why? Well, where's he getting all those? Where's
Texas and Florida?
Where's Jeremiah Smith from?
Florida?
It's from Miami. All right?
He's getting them from Texas and Florida?
Yeah. So he's not getting all those guys from Cincinnati and Cleveland.
No.
Akron. Not that he's not getting guys from there because he's the guy's one of the best recruiters, but I would go find the best recruiter. And it's just not wide receivers that he gets. Like, but he's, you know, he does what the best recruiters do. I'll tell you, Keenan Hall here at Baylor is a great recruiter.
He is an elite recruiter.
And here's why Keenan Hall is great. He's the running backs coach, and he could be a wide receivers coach and probably eventually a coordinator too. Although he may not be a coordinator because he might be just too good a recruiter to not be bogged down and doing the full game plan.
He reminds me of Samples, the younger Samples. Like, just elite recruiting.
Yeah, so you may have him. He's your running back coach. You know what he's going to go do? He's going to get his 5 running backs, and his room's going to be taken care of.
Yep.
Like the first thing off the list is let me go take care of my guys. And then you go to the the other coaches and go, hey, where can I help you close this deal? I'm like, hey, I need to make some inroads with this left guard, you know, from Boynton Beach.
Then let's do it.
And then like, all right, let's go. You know, oh, by the way, while we're down there, there's a wide receiver I need to, you know, and all those. That's what the kind of guy they need. That's where Keenan Hall is unbelievable. And you can see his effect in 6 months already on the recruiting. And it's not just about the guys that they've got committed, because who knows what happens in a month when signing day is. It's less than a month now. But, right? No.
Yeah, it's about a month out. It's less than a month out.
It's less than a month out. So when signing day happens, okay, there it is. Then you've got but it's the guys who are not coming into the room that are.
Just get them in the building.
Yeah, get them in the building. Florida State's pretty good at getting guys in the building. They're pretty good at getting guys in the building, or they were until 2 months ago. Really a month ago. You know, they've had a lot, but what Mike Norvell's not good at doing is closing those high school guys. He's good at closing the portal guys, and like that's his thing, but the high school guys, you got to find a guy who can close the high school guys. And what they need to do is start down that list and go completely outside the box. And I think Mark Norvell will do that. I think, you know, benefit of the doubt, but he's got to make some big waves because $10 million a year or no $10 million a year, if he doesn't get them back to where, I don't think they need to compete for the ACC again next year, but they need to at least look like they could.
All right.
If they don't make a bowl game next year, especially if they start out poorly, he'll be gone early. He'll be gone early. And then we'll see do they go crawling back to Dion thing.
I don't know, man. I'm wondering if he is staying at Colorado.
Oh, I think he is. But I think he is. we'll see.
I think I never thought it, but over the past 2 or 3 weeks, especially keep an eye on their recruiting, I think he might be staying there.
I think he is.
Yeah.
I think he is. I think the only thing that's going to make him leave is what's the next chapter of the what can I do place B that I didn't do place A.
Right.
Like that's the only thing that's going to get him to leave, because believe me, he's not going to like admit defeat.
No.
So the only thing that would be admitting defeat is, well, we've kind of hit the wall with our resources here, with the commitment. But if I went to place B, I know that we'll have that.
Yeah. And I think they're all in with him. Well, literally, that's their tagline. But I mean,
yeah, but they are. But then, we'll see, like, again, it's got to be year over year, and things are going to change. How, like, what does he do to improve his staff next year?
Yeah, because that's definitely got to get upgraded.
He's got, like, defense. He made a really good defensive coordinator hire, for sure. But is Phil Lodeholt back as offensive line coach? Because that's still not great. Is Pat Shurmur back as offensive coordinator? Because
that's what I don't think.
Because here's where he needs what I think an upgraded offensive coordinator is. Travis Hunter gone, Shadur gone, Jimmy Horn Jr. gone, LeJontay Wester gone. I think Will Shepard might be back, and they have some other guys there that aren't playing that are probably as good as maybe everybody but Hunter.
Yeah,
but they're losing a lot of playmakers. They can get them back in the portal, but also the quarterback does not share DNA with Deion Sanders. It's going to be a Florida State
situation.
What?
It's going to be a Florida State situation they're facing.
So yeah, like they're losing a lot of guys, and they've got to get better in the offensive line. So, do you bring in a coordinator that can but can make up for the fact that the quarterback does not share DNA with one of the greatest athletes who ever walked the face of the earth?
Yeah,
that's the thing I think that we forget about Deion is he's not only like a great football player. He was a very good baseball player. Not a great baseball player.
But he was good.
He was in the major league. He was a major league baseball player who hit 250.
Yeah.
With speed and a little bit of pop. A little bit of pop. But speed and great defense and all that. He's one of the greatest athletes who's ever walked the face of this earth. So the quarterback right now was made by Deion. Okay? He made him. He literally made him. With half of his DNA. So when Deion can't, the thing is Deion can't do that for another 18 years.
Yeah.
And I think he might be done with that at this point in his life. He's got a lot of kids. He may not make it around for the next, to really see the next one help him out like that. So how do you get that quarterback? How do you develop that quarterback that, again, will not share Deion's genetic athletic traits? The like father, like son, because, he's got some athletic kids.
A little bit.
Yeah. Shadur's athletic, just like his dad was. He might not be as athletic as his dad is, but that's probably his mom's fault. I don't know. Because Deion's one of the greatest athletes to walk the face of this earth. So when you have someone who's not, making the quarterback, how can that be? How can you develop him, without that? And you can't just go like, okay, well, Bo Jackson doesn't have a kid. Okay, who's the next one? Dan Marino didn't have a kid that's ready. Elway didn't have a kid. Dang it, we're running out of guys.
We're running out.
There's only one. Like, Eli had the nerve to have a bunch of girls. You're not helping me out here, legacy quarterbacks. Come on. So, did Rod Woodson have a, Charles Woodson, where are you at? And those kids are going to Michigan, so don't forget about it. But, by the way, how do you feel about Connor Stallions joining the staff of Bryce Underwood's high school?
Nice try. Nice try, Portnoy. I see you. Bryce Underwood had a great time in Death Valley over the weekend. He's coming to Baton Rouge. Good luck.
Do you feel confident in that?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
I feel good. I'm interested to see where they go from here since they kind of screwed themselves and lost the kid from your school. But
Carter
that's
Smith.
their problem.
Yeah.
Let them drown in their misery.
He's going to Wisconsin. I think he's going to Penn State.
Penn State would be a good fit for him.
He's deciding between UCF and Florida State for his November 30th visit.
UCF and Penn State would be intriguing spots for him.
I think he just wants to go out of state.
I don't blame him.
So, I'll tell you, Florida State's 3 hours further away than from Fort Myers than UCF is. Carter. Just saying.
Nice pitch.
So,
Nice pitch.
And it's not out of state, but it'll feel
close.
closer out of state. It will not feel cold like Penn State or Wisconsin. But look, I would not sneeze at playing for Luke Fickell either.
No.
And I think he's just got to find his guy.
Yeah.
His next Des Ritter, right? Mm-hmm. But all right, that's going to do it for us today. We've got Ari Temkin, we've got Tim Brando, we've got Phil Bennett, Four Corners Pod, right?
Yep.
Four Corners Pod. That's all coming up on 365 Sports. Thanks for watching. Here's Peyton Soisher.
Everyone, Chief Rankings Officer Peyton Soisher on the Triple Option with Paul Catalina. What a crazy week 11 of college football. There were movers up and down. We have so much to cover. Let's go ahead and dive on in right now to rankingsrightnow.com to see where we believe the predictions of the College Football Selection Committee will be on Tuesday night. And first, what we have to really just jump right into is, wow, did Alabama just run it all over LSU? There is so much that came out of that game. We have Alabama moving all the way up 5 spots to number 6. What's going to be really interesting about that is, do we think that Alabama with 2 ranked losses will be above a unbeaten Indiana team and an unbeaten BYU team? BYU came down to the wire as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. But Alabama jumping all the way up to 6, that's a very interesting prediction by the algorithm. This algorithm is trained on historical data points from previous seasons. So based off that data, that's where the algorithm believes that the playoff committee will rank Alabama tonight. We're still stuck with Oregon and Ohio State at 1 and 2. Texas and Penn State both move up 2 spots. Why? Well, we had 2 big upsets. We had Georgia losing. They're dropping down 8 spots. And Miami losing, dropping down 9 spots. So both those games, Miami finally had the fire catch up to them. Georgia just didn't have it. Carson Beck was not the superstar that we needed them to be in that game, right? Due to that loss, we have Ole Miss jumping up all the way up to the 9 spot, and Miami dropping down all the way to 13. We don't see Georgia Tech breaking into the top 25, even though it's a great win, but a really big downgrade for Miami, who's right next to their ACC counterpart, SMU. That's going to be very interesting to watch over the next couple of weeks. CU has a nice win against Texas Tech. They jump up a couple spots. They're right next to their Big 12 team, Kansas State. A lot of big movements. Pitt and Iowa State both have dropped 2 in a row. They're projected to drop out of the top 25. So with all that being said, there was one game in particular that was super crazy to go into the what if simulation tool, and that was BYU. The BYU and Utah game, the Holy War, came down to the final minute. What we really want to talk about when it comes to that BYU-Utah game is the holding call that was called on the final drive for BYU. Utah had the game, but since BYU had that final holding call, it extended the drive, allowed them to kick a field goal at the very end. What if that field goal would have never happened? Where would BYU end up in the rankings? So here we are in the what if simulation tool. It's free to anyone with a login at Rankings right now. If we go ahead and dive all the way down to the BYU and Utah game and take away those final 3 points for the field goal and make this 19-21 final with Utah being the winner, what do the rankings look like? Let's go ahead and run the simulation. And just like that, we're able to see how fast these predictions move. And BYU is dropping all the way down to 16. That moves up even more room for teams like Ole Miss, Notre Dame, Georgia, and Miami's loss don't look nearly as bad anymore. BYU dropping all the way down to 16, right next to their other Big 12 counterparts, Colorado and Kansas State. That would have caused a really, really crazy last couple of weeks for that Big 12 conference, right? All of the things that are going on in that section right there would have been enormous implications. But BYU finishes with a win in the Holy War, and here we are, and now we're all the way back to them being a highly ranked top 10 team, sitting at number 8 according to the current predictions. Based off where Alabama lies, they might even move up to 7 or 6. Thank you so much. I'm Chief Rankings Officer Peyton Swisher on the Triple Option with Paul Catalina.